So in the previous session, we have seen introduction to interfaces and what are the rules you need to you need to follow while what are the rules you need to follow while creating interfaces and implementing interfaces, right? And what happens if you create an interface with public access specifier, and what happens if you don't use public access specifier? That means you can only use default access, public access or public access. You cannot use private access or protected access for interfaces also, just like you cannot do it for classes. Even for interfaces also you cannot do that way. And one more difference is, yesterday in the previous session we have already discussed about one point called, if at all if you are creating an interface with a public access specifier, then that interface must be saved in a separate .java file with the same name as that of the interface, right? Otherwise your interface will not work. If you are not using public access specifiers, then you can create as many interfaces as you want in a single .java file, and you need not give the name of the file also as a name of those interfaces. The restriction is only when you use public access specifier, right? So now let me create multiple interfaces as public interfaces, and then save them in different .java files, and let us create one class. Let them put in a let us put them in a single package. Let us not use in a different package. Anyhow they'll be put in a default package. I'm not going to create any package here. So all the interfaces that we are going to create, they'll be saved in a single directory, interfaces directory, and there we'll compile them. And in another file, another .java file, let us create a class and make that class implement that particular interface and implement all those methods, right? So the just yesterday's program only, little change I'll make, so you can please watch it. So now we are creating only one interface called ECE here in this file, and because we qualified it as public key with public access specifier, so we must save this file as ece.java. But in my folder interfaces, I already have ec.class file, csc.class file, right? So we cannot save now as ec dot. Even though if you save also, after you compile again, dot class file will be generated. There will be a collision with that already existing ec.class file. In yesterday's program in iDemo, we have ec dot class and csc class. So they are generated after compiling as dot class files. So let us save this file in a different folder. Instead of in interfaces, I'll create one more folder. Inside this interface folder, I'll create another folder. I'm going to save it here. So now this time I'm creating one more interface, and this is, instead of ECE, I'll make it as CSE. So I need to save it as csc.java. So all the three interfaces are created in separate files, because when you use the public access specifier, you cannot create them in a single uh, .java file. We have to create them with a separate .java file by giving the name of the .java file with the same name as that of the interface name. So whatever interface you are creating, so with that name you have to save it. You cannot save it with a different interface name. Okay. So now let me create one more file wherein I'm going to create a class. I'm going to create a class which is going to implement these three interfaces, or a single three different classes implementing each of those three interfaces. So to define that method show strength, I need to use the keyword public void. Okay, so I'm creating a class called ECE, which is implementing ECE interface, and this is going to implement that method void show strength method by qualifying it as public, and then using three system.out.println statements. I'm displaying the branch name, number of sections in that branch, and total strength of that branch, right? So similarly, I can define two more classes, one for CSE and the other one for Triply also. So I'll copy paste it and change their names. Instead of ECE, I'll use CSE. Class name I'll give CSE. Here I'll change the branch name as CSE. So number of sections is same for EC and CSE. I'll not change anything here. Strength also is same, 240. Okay, totally three classes we are implementing. ACE, CSE, implement CSE, Triply implements Triply, right? Now I am going to create another class which contains the main method. So now here in this class, I'm going to create objects for all these three classes: ECE, CSE, Triply. So because branches class contains the main method, I'm saving this file as branches.java. And in this main method, I'm creating objects for all the three classes that we created above the class branches. And then using each of those objects, every class has the same method: show strength, show strength, show strength, right? So I'm implementing that interface. I'm implementing in those classes that method. So I'll call that method show strength using those respective class objects. So when you call them, what is it going to do? It is going to display the branch name, number of sections, and total strength of that branch, right? So let us compile this program. So first we need to compile those three different interfaces which we saved them in separate files, right? So the first one is for EC. We created ec.java. So it is compiled successfully. You cannot run it because that interface does not have any concrete methods, so you cannot run that file. And even we didn't define any class also in that interface in that file. And if that class is defined, at least it must contain the main methods. Because there is no class, there is no main method, you cannot compile, you cannot run that .java file, ec.java file. Same is the case with csc.java and triple.java also. So let us compile even those other two interfaces also. Right, so only after compiling these three .java files, then only you can compile the branches.java file. Because if you don't compile them, then you will get an error here when you implement this triple interface, because .class file is not generated for that one. If you try to implement that interface in this with this class, it will generate an error, cannot find symbol like this, triple CSC and EC. So first let us compile them. So already we have done that. Now let me compile branches.java. So because this branches.java contains branches class and even the main method defined in it, so you can compile as well as run it. So it is compiled successfully. So let us run it. So you're getting an exception in the main method. So let us check it. The class name is branches. Okay, we define the main method in this. Class triple E implements triple E. So why you're getting this problem is the name of the class we have chosen earlier as EC, even though the case is different, and the interface name is also EC. We have used earlier, instead of EC info, we have used it simply EC like this. The first letter E is capital and the remaining two letters are in small letters, right? So you cannot do that way. So what you need to do is you need to give a different name for this interface, right? So let me change it back to ECE info. So the same is the case even with CSC also. I modified it to CSC info, and even triple in also triple info I have modified it to, right? Then after that I compile all the three interfaces again. So let me show it again once again. So first Java C, ec.java, then csc.java, and triply.java. So after, because you made changes to the program, you need to recompile those interfaces also, and then compile the branches.java file and run the branches. So you can observe all the three different branches are displayed. First branch name is ECE, number of sections is 4, total strength is 240. Then second branch name is CSC, number of sections is 4, total strength is 240. And third branch name is branch triple E, number of sections is 2 and total strength is 120. So this is how you can implement interfaces when they are created as public interfaces. So what we have done, we have created three different .java files. One is ec.java file, in which I am creating an interface with the name ECE. Exactly, the case must also match. Okay. Then similarly, I created one more .java file, that is csc.java file. So the name of the interface is CSC in capital letters. The same name must be given to the file also. So I saved it as csc.java. Then one more .java file which contains another interface called triply. So this also must be saved as triply.java. So you have to first compile all these interface.java files, then run this .java file called branches.java, where we are defining classes, and each class is implementing its respective interface. ECE info is implementing ECE interface, CSC info is implementing CSC interface. Similarly, triple info is implementing triple interface. So in all these classes, we need to implement that method show strength, because we have declared it as abstract method in all those three methods, right? And all the interfaces have the same uh, variable strength and NOS. Strength is the total strength of that branch, and NOS is number of sections of that branch, right? So I'm defining that method show strength, and look at here how I defined it using the public keyword. So we have to define that method in all the three classes, because all the three interfaces are implemented by those three respective classes, and all the three interfaces are having the same method show strength, right? So each method is displaying its respective branches name, number of sections, and strength. So instead of implementing one class implementing one separate interface, we can create a single class and make it implement all the three interfaces together. So let us make that change to this program again. So let me define one more class here. I'll define a class called strength here. But let us see whether it will work or not, because in all the three interfaces I have created the same method show strength, right? So how many times I have to implement that method? If I define only one method, will it work? Let us see. So what I have done is, instead of displaying those three branches strings in three different show strength methods in three different classes, I'm implementing all the three interfaces in a single class, that is strength. It is implementing all the three interfaces, right? So how to make a class implement multiple interfaces? By specifying those multiple interfaces names and separating them with a comma. So after ECE I gave a comma, then CSE, and then after that comma, and finally the third interface triple E. So in that way you can implement any number of interfaces for a single class, right? Similarly, one interface can also be implemented by multiple classes also. So that is exactly opposite. So here you are finding, in this case, one class is implementing one interface, and here also in this case also one class is implementing one interface, and here also one class implementing only one interface. But in this case here, sorry, I have copied and pasted all this in this one. So will this work? I guess this will not be working. So first let me show it by compiling it first, and then I'll tell you the reason. So let me compile all the .java files from the beginning. So these interfaces .java files will be compiled without any problem because we didn't make any change to those interfaces. Now let me compile branches.java. And then give void here. So now you see how many errors I'm getting, 6 errors. So reference to NOS is ambiguous. Similarly, you'll also have reference to strength also being ambiguous. Reference to strength also ambiguous. Why you're getting this error? Because all the three interfaces are having the same uh, variable names strength, NOS, and same method show strength. And when you are implementing all these three interfaces, what will happen? There will be a conflict between these three interface variables. EC has strength, CAC has strength, and triple also has strength. And because you are implementing all the three interfaces in a single class, so uh, the variable strength in all the three interfaces will have a conflict. So that's why you are getting the term ambiguous. Similarly, NOS also. NOS is there in EC interface, CSC interface, and triple interface. So that's why you will get an error even for that also. Earlier we didn't get error because we are implementing these interfaces in separate classes, different classes. So you will not get any conflict. You will not get any ambiguity because you are implementing those interfaces in different classes. But when you try to implement them in a single class, then comes a problem. So what we need to do is to uh, remove this error. We need to modify the name of these variables in the interfaces. So you can use instead of strength, I'll use strength EC, right? And NOS, I'll use NOS EC. and here instead of show strength I'll use show ECE strength, right? Then what I have to do, I'll change even here also. If you make changes like this, again you will get a problem in this branches.java file, because we are creating EC info, CSC info and triple info classes also, but there we are not using these show strength methods and all these things, simply show strength, right? So we need to make a modification here also. Instead of show strength I have to use here show ECE strength. Similarly here show CSC strength, and here show triple strength, and also NOS and strength also must be changed. NOS must be now NOS ECE, and strength must be strength ECE. So that is what we have created, right? And similarly for CSC, NOS CSE and strength CSE, and even for triple E also NOS triple E strength triple E, right? And when you are implementing all the three interfaces in a single class strength also, we cannot create a single method here. Now we need to create three different methods because the names of the methods have changed, right? So there will be three different methods. So ECE strength, so another method called show CSE strength must be created. And these variable names also must be changed here. NOS ECE, strength ECE, NOS CSE, strength CSE, and NOS triple E and strength triple E, right? So now let us compile them again, because we have made even for interfaces also we made changes, so we need to compile even the interfaces files also. So let us compile them once again. Still I'm getting errors. Okay, while creating objects also we have to change their names. So in the interface we have given only double E, we didn't give triple E, so that's why you're getting an error here. So let me compile it again. If I compile triply.java, that is sufficient. So now all the files are successfully compiled. So let us run it. But it will display previous output only because we are not creating any object for the class strength, right? So now let us create an object for class strength. We created class objects for all the three different classes: EC info, CSC info, triple info, but we didn't create object for this class called strength, right? So if we create a object for strength, then you can call the three different methods: show EC strength, show CSC strength, and show triple strength with the single class object strength. So let me create it that. So now the output will be displayed double times because once in each of these three different class object methods, and one more time in these three methods that are called using the strength class object. So let us compile it again. So you're getting multiple times. Branch EC is displayed one time here, right? And one more time here. Even similarly, CSC and triple are also displayed two times. Okay. Right. So this is how you need to create interfaces as public and save them in a separate .java file and compile them separately, and then in another .java file create classes and compile it and run it. So two ways you have implemented interface: one class implementing one interface and one class implementing all the three interfaces, right? So in the next step what you are going to see is single class implementing single multiple classes implementing same interface. So we'll create only one interface, but we'll create multiple classes implementing the same interface. So that we'll see in the next session.